covered Avraham Chaim ben Simcha deserves it to be repeated in my own way. In life, second chances don't always come along. I lost my father, Shalom, 30 years ago, and from that moment, Zaidi became that second father figure for me. He would give me sagely advice when I asked for it, and criticism when appropriate, and that's when I knew I really belonged. But I always knew it came from a heart filled with love and concern. Zaidi's world was a life of emes and yashrus. He didn't mince words, but would tell it to you straight. There was no question about how one should conduct himself, whether in business or in life with Zaidi. His handshake was as good as anyone else's signature or guarantee. Zaidi understood what was important in life, though. Honesty, respect, hard work, and above all, Torah and family. In the Gemara in Brachos, a pasuk from Mishlei is quoted, Tov Shem Mishem and Tov. A good name is better than good oil. The Shem and Tov represents the kahuna of Aaron HaKohen, something that's handed down or inherited, while a good name is something that an individual has to develop by himself. He has to earn it. Zaidi began working at the age of 12. He worked hard for everything he got. Nothing came easy, but he was always grateful to Hashem. The successful businesses he built up were done with a combination of a good business cup and a tremendous work ethic. Up until the last month, he still logged in meticulously all his checks and kept a perfect ledger of all his bank and charitable transactions. Until the age of 99, 3 years ago, I used to say Zaidi's body was an 85-year-old body with a 25-year-old mind. More recently, unfortunately, he had a 100-year-old body, but still that 25-year-old mind. Zaidi was always on time. Feeling to be late for an appointment was disrespectful. Zaidi's life was a life of Torah. Understanding what being a frum Jew meant as far as dedication to learning, davening, strict adherence to mitzvahs, minhagim, and Masorah. He was willing to make tremendous sacrifices to maintain that integrity to his family. That meant sending his only son, as we said before, at age 11 to Torah Vidar, which must have been a gut-wrenching decision, considering the lack of communication in those days. Even to the fact that he wasn't able to attend Me'ari's bar mitzvah. But more importantly for him, to see the foundation for a future filled with ruknias. Family was the other key in Zaidi's life. How insistent he was about the family being together on Yom Tov, especially Pesach in Miami and Sukkot in Eretz Israel. How I remember the Vasikin Hoshana Rabbah davening at the Kotel he and I would do, as well as the great times at the King Solomon. Then there were the Shabbases with Zaidi's Nigunim and Heroes, and stories where he would relate the dates as if it were today. Heaven forbid we dared bring in a modern melody. He would say, Modernische. This is not the way we did it back home. Tradition was very important for him. Zaidi loved Shabbos though. In davening we say the tefillas of the Yom, counting the proximity of the day to Shabbos. Zaidi didn't just say it, he lived it, making Shabbos the focal point of his week. In America it's said people know how to be Shomer Shabbos, but not Shomer Erev Shabbos. Zaidi would start at noon on Fridays polishing his shoes and setting up the candles for Bobby, as well as bringing flowers for her when he was younger. He generally got ready for Shabbos with calmness and joy. Up until he got sick, he made sure someone wheeled him to shul every Shabbos. But on his previous hospital admission, he was discharged on a Friday, so weak and fragile. But still he asked the doctor if he would let him go to shul the next day. Zaidi loved Hazunish. He was an excellent baltfila with perfect nusach. Until the last year, his voice was still strong, and if he could stand, he would have been an amazing shliach tzibur. He used to laugh at me when I would tell him how long or short my Erev Rosh Hashanah slichos was, because until his early 90s, he would be the baltfila and say slichos, and his slichos would last over 2 hours in his shul. Everyone loved Zaidi, from doormen, shopkeepers, doctors, business associates, and Hushaver Rebbeim, such as the Klausenberger Rebbe, the Skuliner Rebbe, the Kalaber Rebbe, and even to the point where the Kalaber Rebbe sent him very special and personal oil for his menorah this past Hanukkah, which he was able to light. Finally, also his Hebron Shul. When he would visit us in Lawrence, I took him to a shtibel where there were Holocaust survivors, and they would ask him how he was doing, of course, and when he was coming, and when's he coming back to tell them more stories, even though they had so many of their own. As I'll say, a name reflects the essence of an individual. Avraham Chaim ben Simcha does just that. Avraham finding his Yiddish neshama at a very young age, as well as a quiet chesed, never wanting any recognition. Chaim, he lived a life that was productive and fulfilling every moment with arichas yomim. And Simcha, he enjoyed what Hashem gave him with a full heart and its true joy of life. These past few weeks in the hospital, I saw the tremendous strength and determination of a Holocaust survivor in general, and in particular Zaidi. Whenever I would think his medical condition was dire, he somehow came back to the relief of the family and the astonishment of his doctor. I said Zaidi's body didn't read the medical textbooks. A day before he died, with his eyes closed and barely clinging to life, his beloved wife of 72 years sat by his side and began to cry. To my amazement, Zaidi lifted his right hand and placed it on Bobby's head to seemingly comfort her, as he did so repeatedly for those previous 7 decades. Bobby sitting for those difficult weeks at home and in the hospital, sitting by his side, stroking his face so gently and lovingly, always asking him, "Opa, what can I do for you? How can I make you comfortable?" Bobby, if you can hear me, no wife was as devoted to her husband as you were. Know that Zaidi will always be watching over and protecting you. I also saw an unbelievable example of Kibbutz Av from the whole family. During his hospital stay and before, the family was always there 24/7. He was never alone for a moment. From his children, Mary, Jenny, and Dora, to the grandchildren, and even visits or phone calls from his great-grandchildren, which would always perk Zaidi up. There were calls and visits from New York and Yerushalayim, with all of Tehillim being shared and said each day for his refuah. Bobby and Zaidi have left a legacy of 3 children and their spouses, 9 grandchildren and their families, with 36 great-grandchildren, all following the proper Yiddish Adera. This is what Yaakov Avinu and Zaidi meant when they said, Yesh li ko. My grandson Meir Simcha said a beautiful word on Parsha Shmos in relation to Zaidi. The Baal Turim on the first 2 words, L'chai, Shmos, Rashi, there's a Rosh Hashanah from the Baal Turim. It says in those 2 words, Chayiv Lad Adam Likros HaTorah Shenayim V'Mikros Echad L'Targim, that gives Arichas Yomim. How does that relate to Zaidi? Well, Zaidi would sit on the couch with his Chumash, and all week do just that. Go over the Chumash, go over the Torah. And it was B'Sher Zaidi, I guess, was Nifter, on Erev Shabbos, Parsha Shmos. Zaidi, you lived a life of Arichas Yomim that was never wasted for a moment. You set the bar very high. That's the model that I hope we all will strive to be. The mensch you were, the value system you followed, the loving Zaidi, Papi, Opa, we all saw. Since you turned 100, whenever I left you on a trip, I asked you for a bracha. Now you have left us, and I ask you for a tefillah.